On a chilly early winter afternoon, a female student called her friend. They arranged to meet at the train station, but the girl never made it to their meeting point and lost contact with everyone. Where did she go, and what horrifying event happened to her? Today, we will continue exploring one of Hong Kong's top 10 infamous cases. This story took place in Happy Valley, located in the southern part of Wan Chai District on Hong Kong Island. The main character of the story is Yuk-ying, a 16-year-old girl who was the sixth of 8 siblings. Her family didn't live in Happy Valley, but in Tai Long Wan, on the eastern part of Hong Kong Island. Yuk-ying's parents ran a fish shop nearby, and her brother was studying at the University of Hong Kong. Yuk-ying attended Shinfa Middle School, where her younger brother Jing-ming later studied. Due to poor academic performance, she transferred to Ducheng Evening English College in Causeway Bay for her 9th grade studies. Classes there began at 7 p.m. and ended at 9 p.m. Yuk-ying occasionally helped her parents at their fish shop. During the day, she would leave home at 6 p.m. to take the tram to Causeway Bay for evening school. She would typically return home around 10 p.m. As Christmas approached, her school was planning a prom night. After class, Yuk-ying needed to stay behind to rehearse a play with her classmates, which meant she would return home later than usual. One day, Yuk-ying left home to attend her evening class, just like any other day. However, she never returned. On Monday, December 16, 1974, despite the cool weather outside, Yuk-ying still decided to go to her evening class in Causeway Bay. At 5 p.m., Yuk-ying changed her clothes and left home. She left an hour earlier than usual. By 6 p.m., Yuk-ying called her close friend Chen Bingbing, a former classmate from Shinfa School. The two were very close and often went to the movies and shopping together. Although Yuk-ying had transferred schools, she stayed in touch with her old friends. This time, Yuk-ying called Chen Bingbing to ask her to return a pop music cassette tape that Chen had borrowed earlier. During the call, they agreed to meet at the Happy Valley tram station in half an hour. Chen Bingbing lived on Sing Kwong Road in Happy Valley, which was very close to the tram station. By 6:30 p.m., Chen Bingbing arrived at the tram station with the cassette tape, but Yuk-ying was nowhere to be seen. She waited there for a while, but by 7 p.m., Yuk-ying still hadn't shown up. Since Yuk-ying had a habit of canceling plans in the past, Chen Bingbing thought her friend probably wouldn't show up this time either, so she decided to head back home. That night, Yuk-ying's parents were busy working at their fish shop until late. When they returned home, they were surprised to see that their daughter hadn't come back yet. Remembering that the school was rehearsing for a play, they called her classmates, but the response they received was unsettling. Yuk-ying had not attended school that evening, nor had she participated in the play rehearsal. No one knew where she was. The night passed, and the next morning, a sanitation worker began his usual cleaning routine at the Happy Valley tram station. The station was located on Wong Nai Chung Road, surrounded by tall buildings and shops. The worker had to make sure the streets were clean before the businesses opened for the day. When the worker reached the front of a veterinary clinic at 212 and 213 Wong Nai Chung Road, he noticed a large cardboard box tied with rope placed in front of the clinic. The box was about 35 inches long and 24 inches wide. Finding it odd that such a large box was left in front of the clinic, the worker tried to push it, but it didn't move. Thinking it might belong to the clinic, he decided not to pay it much attention. By a little after 8 a.m., as the veterinary clinic was about to open, an employee arrived at the clinic. He also noticed the cardboard box, but since it didn't belong to the clinic and was blocking the entrance, it was causing an obstruction to their business. The employee tried to move the box, but found it too heavy to lift on his own. He called a colleague for help, and together they carried the box to the side of the road, not too far from the clinic. 2 hours later, a police officer was patrolling Wong Nai Chung Road. When he approached the front of the veterinary clinic, he saw the cardboard box on the sidewalk, obstructing traffic. The officer asked around, but no one claimed ownership of it. He then used scissors to cut the rope and open the box. What he didn't expect was to find the naked body of a woman inside, wrapped in newspapers. Shocked by the discovery, The officer immediately used his radio to report the incident to the command center. Since it was rush hour, there were many people passing by. A curious crowd quickly gathered to see what was happening. Not long after, backup police units arrived at the scene. They cordoned off the area and began their investigation. Inside the box was the body of a young woman, completely nude, with her arms tightly curled around her body. The only items found in the box were a few old newspapers, and no clothing or personal belongings of the victim were discovered. Forensic experts found traces of copper fragments on the body, a piece of red adhesive tape in her hair, and some paint particles on her elbows. A small white piece of paper stuck to her elbow had 2 words written on it: "Due to damage." It was possible that the victim had been in a repair shop for electrical appliances before her death. Police also found some fabric fibers under the victim's fingernails, possibly from contact with the perpetrator's clothing. The box containing the woman's body was 35 inches long, 24 inches wide, and 24 inches high. It had originally been used to store a Hitachi television. There were several fingerprints left on the box, but all the individuals linked to those prints were cleared of suspicion. The autopsy revealed that the victim had numerous bruises on her body, suggesting she may have been tortured before death, but there were no signs of sexual assault. Her breasts were removed post-mortem, and her pubic hair had been burned with a hot object. Based on the food remnants found in her stomach, it was determined that the victim had eaten within 3 hours prior to her death. According to the findings, the victim had been placed inside the box approximately 12 hours after she died. The cause of death was asphyxiation due to manual strangulation with the perpetrator's right hand. The estimated time of death was between 6 p.m. on December 16th and the early hours of the following morning. The police checked the recent missing persons reports but found no matches. They then released images and information about the victim to the media, hoping the public could provide clues. Meanwhile, Yuk-ying's family was desperately searching for her. By chance, they came across news of the girl in the box case in the newspaper. Seeing the victim's portrait, they noticed a striking resemblance to Yuk-ying and feared the worst. 2 days after Yuk-ying disappeared, her family went to the police station to identify the body. The victim in the cardboard box was quickly confirmed to be 16-year-old Yuk-ying. Once the victim's identity was confirmed, the Hong Kong police immediately set up a special task force, led by the famous detective known for his bald head. Investigators began tracing Yuk-ying's movements before her death, starting by questioning her younger brother, who was the last person to speak with her, and her classmate Chen Bingbing. Yuk-ying's younger brother, Jing-ming, reported that on the day of the incident, he had returned home earlier than usual after finishing his exams. His sister, Yuk-ying, had already prepared lunch, and the two of them ate together. Around 4 p.m., Yuk-ying received a phone call. About 7 minutes later, she received another call, both lasting about 2 to 3 minutes. Yuk-ying then told her brother that before going to her evening class, she would stop by a newspaper office in North Point to help her older brother post an advertisement, and that she would be leaving the house at 5 p.m. instead of her usual 6 p.m. However, upon investigation, the newspaper office in North Point reported that they had not received any advertising request from Yuk-ying. Additionally, the office had closed at 5 p.m. that day, the same time Yuk-ying had just left her house. As for Chen Bingbing, she told the police that she had known Yuk-ying for 4 years, having met her at Xinfa School. Even after they attended different schools, they remained in touch. 6 months earlier, while out shopping together, Yuk-ying had bought a pop music cassette tape, which Chen Bingbing later borrowed. On the afternoon of the incident, Yuk-ying called Chen Bingbing, asking her to return the cassette tape. They agreed to meet at the Happy Valley tram station. Chen Bingbing arrived at the agreed time, but by 7 p.m. there was still no sign of Yuk-ying, so she decided to leave. She also added that Yuk-ying often arrived late or canceled plans. They had arranged to meet at the Happy Valley tram station multiple times before, and Yuk-ying had failed to show up 4 or 5 times already. So this time, Chen Bingbing didn't think much of it and assumed her friend had canceled again. Interestingly, when Chen Bingbing recalled their conversation, she remembered that there was a lot of background noise where Yuk-ying was, and her voice sounded hurried and anxious. Sensing that her friend was in a rush, Chen Bingbing quickly grabbed the cassette tape and headed to the tram station, never imagining that something terrible would happen to Yuk-ying. Next, the police went to Dacheng Evening English College in Causeway Bay, where Yuk-ying was studying, to investigate. The police asked the teacher for the attendance record from the night of the incident, but the teacher reported that the list had gone missing. The teacher added that the day after Yuk-ying disappeared, her family had visited the school to inquire about her. At that time, the teacher checked the attendance list and noticed that Yuk-ying had not attended class that evening. He then set the list aside, but strangely, when he later went to look for it, the attendance record had vanished. The police continued gathering information from Yuk-ying's classmates. They described her as an energetic and cheerful girl, with a particular love for ice cream. She had never had a boyfriend, and her parents were very strict, so she rarely interacted with boys. Yuk-ying had a strong passion for acting and was planning to participate in a Christmas performance. She and her classmates had been rehearsing after school many times, and she had never missed a session. The day of the incident was the only time she didn't show up. Yuk-ying's family confirmed what her classmates had said. They added that she didn't like associating with male classmates. However, there was a boy from Taiwan, a fellow student, who had pursued her, but Yuk-ying rejected him. Afterward, the boy started spreading false rumors about her at school. One of the rumors claimed that Yuk-ying's family was involved with organized crime. Some students believed the rumors and were too afraid to get close to her. Later, Yuk-ying's older sister went to school to talk to the boy from Taiwan. After investigating the situation, the police considered the boy a possible suspect and searched for him to get a statement. However, after Yuk-ying's murder, the boy had seemingly disappeared. Sometime later, the police located him, but he provided an alibi proving he wasn't the one who killed Yuk-ying. At first, the police were almost certain that the boy was the culprit and believed the case was about to be solved, but now this lead had gone cold, leaving the case at a standstill. They turned their investigation toward the cardboard box that contained Yuk-ying's body. According to their investigation, the box was originally used to package a Hitachi 17-inch TV, model S67B. This particular TV model had been sold in Hong Kong for 2 years prior to the incident. A dealer on Keishu Road in Kowloon was the exclusive distributor of this TV model in Hong Kong. The company's manager informed the police that in the last 3 months they had sold a total of 300 units of the S67B model. However, the company didn't sell directly to customers, but through 72 second-tier dealers across the region. This made tracking the origin of the box extremely difficult. The police followed the lead from the TV, tracking down hundreds of buyers and asking where they had disposed of the TV box. However, no one admitted to dumping the box on Wong Nai Chung Road. At this point, the head of the special investigation team refocused on the cardboard box. He noted that the box was originally designed to hold a TV, but the perpetrator used it to contain a body, which would make it extremely heavy. It would be difficult for one person to move the box, and if they tried, the box would likely become deformed or even damaged. However, this particular box was tied with a rope at the bottom for support, showing signs of light dragging, but overall, it remained intact and in fairly good condition. The inspector then asked team members to recreate the crime scene. A female officer with a similar build to Yuk-ying lay inside the box in the same position as the victim was found. Through the experiment, they discovered that the box, with a person inside, was too heavy for one person to carry and would require 2 people. However, if 2 people were to lift it, the box would become significantly deformed during the process and could not be moved a long distance. So, how did the perpetrator manage to transport the box with the body to Wong Nai Chung Road? To clarify this, the police examined 50 popular car models on the market at the time. The results showed that neither the back seats nor the trunks of any of these vehicles could fit the 17-inch TV box. It's possible that the perpetrator used a truck to transport the box to Wong Nai Chung Road, but the police thought this was unlikely. Happy Valley is a densely populated area, and a truck would attract attention. Additionally, unloading items from a truck would raise suspicion. However, there were no reports of any suspicious trucks seen in the area on the day of the incident. Furthermore, if the perpetrator had used a truck, they could have easily transported the box to a remote area outside the city, making it harder to detect. After further consideration, the bald-headed inspector suddenly had an idea. The initial crime scene might not have been elsewhere but was actually in Happy Valley, where the body was found. In combination with the discovery of copper fragments on the victim's body, investigators conducted a thorough search of all factories and electrical repair workshops in the Happy Valley area. They also interviewed nearly 750 electricians. However, they did not uncover any suspicious leads. As time passed, it was nearing the end of December, about 20 days after the crime. While conducting field investigations, a police officer accidentally stumbled upon an important clue. He noticed a large number of technical devices and cardboard boxes in the attic of an ice cream shop, resembling a small workshop. The ice cream shop, named Anmei, was not only located on Wangnai-chung Road in Happy Valley, but it was also right next to the veterinary clinic where Yuk-ying's body was found. Remembering that Yuk-ying's classmate had mentioned she loved ice cream, the officer had a hunch that there might be something suspicious about this ice cream shop. He immediately reported his findings and suspicions to his superiors. 2 weeks after the incident, the police obtained a search warrant and went to Anmei Ice Cream Shop to investigate. The shop was primarily divided into 3 areas: the front section where ice cream was sold to customers, the back area used for repairing vending machines, and the attic where tools and miscellaneous items were stored. There was also a phone line installed in the attic. Upon careful inspection, the police found copper wires, red adhesive tape, paint, cardboard boxes, newspapers, a welding machine, and other items in the attic. These items were in some way connected to Yuk-ying. The manager of Anmei Ice Cream Shop stated that the items stored in the attic were mainly used to repair the shop's vending machines. The newspapers were purchased by the shop, and after everyone finished reading them, they were stacked neatly and periodically collected for recycling. While there were cardboard boxes in the attic, they were all small boxes, and none were large enough to fit a TV. The manager then provided the police with the employee shift schedule for the night of the crime. According to the schedule, the only employee working that evening was a man named Yeung Ping-keung. During the police search, Yeung appeared visibly anxious and tense, his facial muscles twitching. From the moment they entered the shop, the sharp-eyed officers had taken note of his behavior and quietly observed him. Their instincts told them they were onto something this time. The next day, the police brought Yeung in for questioning. During the interrogation, the police used various coercive tactics such as pouring soda into his nose and brutally beating him. However, Yeung Ping-keung maintained that he did not know Yuk-ying and could not have killed her. Since there was no additional evidence, the police were forced to release him. The forensics team conducted an analysis of the evidence collected from the ice cream shop. The results showed that the copper fragments, paint, and red adhesive tape were the same types as those found on the victim's body. The newspaper from the ice cream shop was also the same issue used to wrap the body. The small white note with the words, "due to damage," found on the victim's elbow, matched a note with the words, "repaired," found in the attic. The police then searched the home of the suspect, Yeung Ping-keung, and confiscated 3 sets of clothing. The forensic results confirmed that the fabric fibers found under Yuk-ying's nails matched Yeung's suit. Additionally, 2 green wool fibers of unknown origin found on his suit matched the green wool fibers found on Yuk-ying's body. Based on the evidence gathered, the police developed a theory. On the afternoon of the crime, after leaving her home, Yuk-ying went to the newspaper office in North Point to help her brother place an advertisement. When she arrived, she found the office was closed, so she left and was preparing to head to her evening school. With extra time on her hands, Yuk-ying wandered the streets alone. When she reached Wangnai-chung Road, she noticed an ice cream shop called Anmei. Since she loved ice cream, she decided to stop in. After buying her ice cream, Yuk-ying suddenly remembered that her close friend Chen Bingbing lived nearby, also in the Happy Valley area. That evening, Yeung Ping-keung was working at Anmei Ice Cream Shop. Yuk-ying asked if there was a phone in the shop. Yeung Ping-keung led her upstairs to the attic to make the call. The phone call that Pin Yuk-ying made to her friend Chen Bingbing was from Anmei ice cream shop. At that time, no one else was in the shop, and Yeung began harboring ill intentions. Pin Yuk-ying fought back fiercely and tried to escape. Yeung then strangled her from behind with his right hand. Due to excessive force, Pin Yuk-ying was strangled to death. Realizing he had committed a crime, but still needing to attend to customers since the shop was open, Yeung hid the body in the attic and continued to serve customers. Once the shop closed, he locked the front door and returned to the attic. He undressed Pin Yuk-ying, burned her pubic hair with a hot object, and cut off her breasts in an attempt to mislead the police, making them think the murderer was a psychopath or mentally unstable. He then found a large cardboard TV box nearby and stuffed Pin Yuk-ying's body inside. Since the box was too heavy and dragging it would leave marks on the bottom, Yeung decided to dump it in front of the veterinary clinic next door. He thought, "The most dangerous place is the safest place." This tactic was indeed clever. Initially, the police had no suspicion that the killer was right in front of them. However, Yeung left too many clues behind and ultimately could not escape justice. The suspect, Yeung Ping-keung, 28 years old, lived in Saiwan, Hong Kong. He worked as an office clerk at a factory on Wangang Road. Both of his parents had passed away, and his financial situation was not well off. Yeung Ping-keung met his wife, Zhang Jin-feng, in 1972, 2 years before the crime took place. After a year of dating, the two got married. Their relationship was strong, and they had a daughter. In the year of the crime, his wife was pregnant with their second child, a son. To earn extra income to cover living expenses, Yeung Ping-keung started working part-time in the evenings at Anmei ice cream shop, 4 months before the crime. According to the shop's policy, employees were allowed 1 day off per week, but in order to make more money, Yeung worked even on his days off. Yeung's life was quite busy. Every day he would work at the factory in Kwun starting at 8 a.m. After finishing his shift at 5 p.m., he would head straight to Anmei ice cream shop, usually arriving around 5:40 p.m. At this time, the daytime staff were still finishing their shifts. Yeung's shift was from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., but because there was a lot of work at the ice cream shop, he typically didn't return home until 11 p.m. Sometimes his wife would prepare dinner for him, and other times, the couple would go out to eat together. The police interviewed Yeung's wife, who confirmed that her husband came home around 11 p.m. as usual and didn't show any unusual behavior. That night, they stayed in and didn't go out. She described her husband as a hard-working man with ambition. The neighbors also said that Yeung was polite and soft-spoken, always greeting people courteously. The police then returned to Anmei ice cream shop to continue their investigation. According to the timekeeping records from the day of the crime, Yeung arrived at the shop at 5:40 p.m. and finished his shift at 10:30 p.m., just like on any other day. The ice cream shop's manager explained that to enter the shop, one must pass through 3 doors. The outermost door was a rolling metal gate, followed by a smaller door only wide enough for one person, and the innermost door was made of wood. The ice cream shop had a total of 16 employees, but only 3 people had keys to all 3 doors, including Yeung. On January 3, 1975, 3 months after the crime, Yeung was officially arrested on suspicion of murder. 6 months later, Yeung Ping-keung's trial began at the Hong Kong High Court. The jury consisted of 5 men and 2 women. Throughout the trial, Yeung maintained his innocence and denied all charges. At the trial, the prosecution presented over 200 pieces of evidence. They argued that the proximity of Anmei ice cream shop to the veterinary clinic was ideal for the perpetrator to commit the crime and dispose of the body. Additionally, the fibers found under the victim's nails matched the fibers on Yeung's suit. Identical green wool fibers were found on Pin Yuk-ying's body at Anmei ice cream shop and in Yeung's home. Furthermore, the copper fragments, scraps of paper, and paint found on Pin Yuk-ying matched the materials found in the attic of Anmei ice cream shop. Lastly, according to the shop's timekeeping records, Yeung was the only one working at Anmei ice cream shop on the night of the crime. He had keys to all 3 of the shop's doors, giving him the opportunity and time to commit the crime. The police used a mannequin to demonstrate how the perpetrator could have stuffed the body into the cardboard box and dragged it to the disposal site. They also simulated how the perpetrator strangled Yuk-ying from behind. The prosecution called 15 witnesses to testify. One of them, a 19-year-old woman, stated that she worked at a factory in Sai-po-kong. On her way to work in Kwun Tong, Yeung had twice burned her dress with a cigarette butt. Psychologists testified that this act was a form of sexual deviance. The prosecution pointed out that the victim's pubic hair had been burned, linking this to similar deviant behavior. Yeung's defense maintained his innocence. His lawyer argued that Yeung and his wife had a loving relationship. He had a stable job, and he didn't know Yuk-ying, so there was no clear motive for the murder. Furthermore, out of the 269 fibers found on Yuk-ying's body, only 7 matched the suit Yeung wore to work. Additionally, the medical examiner initially concluded that Yuk-ying's time of death was between 9 p.m. and midnight on the night of the crime, but later changed it to between 6 p.m. and midnight. This raised suspicions of a deliberate alteration of the time of death to match Yeung's work schedule. Lastly, no fingerprints found on the cardboard box matched Yeung's. The disappearance of the class attendance sheet and the 2 phone calls Yuk-ying received before she went missing were also suspicious. Yet the police had not fully investigated these aspects. Yeung stated that Anmei ice cream shop did not allow customers to make phone calls to avoid unnecessary trouble. The attic window at Anmei did not face the street, so the environment there was very quiet, which contradicted the testimony of Chen Bingbing, who said that when she spoke with Yuk-ying on the phone, the background noise was loud. On the day of the incident, Yuk-ying had never been to the ice cream shop. Yeung also mentioned that he was only a part-time employee, so he rarely went up to the attic, only once or twice to retrieve tools for machine repairs. He had never used the welding machine, so he couldn't have used it to burn the victim's pubic hair. The work at the ice cream shop was very busy, and Yeung had to handle multiple tasks by himself, such as serving customers, handling payments, cleaning the shop, etc. He usually didn't finish his shift until after 10 p.m. He claimed he had no time to search for a cardboard box or dispose of the body. After hearing arguments from both the prosecution and the defense, the 7-member jury, 5 men and 2 women, reached a verdict after 18 days of trial. The Hong Kong High Court declared Yeung guilty of murder and sentenced him to death. This case became the first in Hong Kong to be solved using scientific evidence. After the trial, Yeung continued to maintain his innocence. He began a hunger strike in prison to prove his purity, stating that he had never done anything against his conscience and did not deserve such punishment. Yeung's wife, Zhang Jinfeng, also believed in her husband's innocence. She sought help from various lawyers, and a prominent lawyer at the time, Lin Tao-hua, presented 8 reasons to appeal the case in the appellate court. In March 1976, over a year after the crime occurred, the defense's efforts paid off. The appellate court overturned the original verdict and ordered a retrial. 2 months later, the Hong Kong High Court reopened the case of the body in the cardboard box in Happy Valley. This time, the jury consisted of 7 men and 2 women. The defense invited renowned lawyer Hu Hong Lee to represent Yeung. After deliberation, the jury still concluded that Yeung was guilty of murder. Once again, Yeung was sentenced to death. He appealed to both the Court of Appeal and the Privy Council in the United Kingdom, but his appeals were rejected, and the death sentence was upheld. In 1977, more than 2 years after the crime, after considering opinions from various parties, Hong Kong Governor MacLehose decided to grant clemency, commuting Yeung Ping-keung's death sentence to life imprisonment. By 1981, 7 years after the crime, Yeung had served 6 years in prison. During his imprisonment, he displayed exemplary behavior, even teaching Braille to blind inmates and becoming a model prisoner. However, multiple requests for clemency were denied on the grounds that Yeung had not shown genuine remorse. In reality, Yeung wasn't without regret. He simply continued to insist that he had not killed Yuk-ying. That same year, Zhang Jinfeng filed for divorce from Yeung. She took their daughter, and the 2 of them lived together, relying on each other. In 1990, 16 years after the crime, Yeung finally admitted to killing Yuk-ying and recounted the details of the crime. In 2002, 28 years after the crime, Yeung was granted clemency and released from prison. After his release, in an interview with the media, Yeung maintained that he was innocent and had not committed the murder. He claimed that his confession in prison was made under duress, as it was the only way people would believe he had truly repented, giving him a chance to be released. Regarding the body in the cardboard box in Happy Valley case, some believe that Yeung had no motive to kill. There were no eyewitnesses, and no fingerprints linked him to the crime. These pieces of evidence, they argue, were insufficient to convict him, and it's entirely possible that Yeung was wrongfully convicted. However, others argue that while there was no strong direct evidence, the accumulation of circumstantial evidence formed a closed loop that was unlikely to be mere coincidence. They believe Yeung was indeed responsible for Yuk-ying's death. After nearly 35 years in prison, Yeung Ping-keung changed his name and started a new life. As for the truth of the case from all those years ago, perhaps only he knows the full story. The case closed with many unresolved mysteries, leaving the people of Hong Kong in shock and with a lingering sense of unease. Whatever the truth may be, there are those who believe that somewhere, in a hidden corner of this city, the spirit of the young schoolgirl still wanders, waiting for answers and true peace. This concludes today's video. See you in the next one. Goodbye.